Hey everybody, welcome back to Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here. Welcome to the weekend, and I can't believe I'm talking to Billy Dee Williams today. Lando Calrissian, Bingo Long, Nighthawks, so many great movies. Lady Sings the Blues, and Mahogany, Colt 45 Pitchman. What an incredible career, and what an honor to speak to Billy Dee Williams today. He can't talk about Episode 9, I should tell you that right off the bat. Obviously, they're always very careful about new releases, but he can talk about Lando, and we get into the origins of Lando and what Billy Dee did to create the character, and a lot of other memorable roles as well. I mean, I've been a fan of Billy Dee's since the early 70s. The first thing I ever saw him in was a great biography movie called Brian's Song, all about the life of Brian Piccolo and his great relationship with Gale Sayers. It was James Caan and Billy Dee Williams in 1972 or 1973, a television movie that really resonated with people. And man, I'll tell you, if you were a Chicago Bear fan, you saw Brian's Song and you cried your eyes out, and you cried with Billy Dee Williams as we watched Brian Piccolo ebb away. It's an amazing story, and Caan and Williams really, did an incredible job. The man's had an amazing career. All right, without further ado, let's get into this conversation with Billy Dee Williams. Man, I'm telling you, this was amazing. I can't believe I got this opportunity, and I'm happy to share it with you now. Let's get into it. Billy Dee Williams on Word Balloon. Billy Dee Williams, welcome to Word Balloon. It's an honor, sir. Longtime fan, even before Star Wars. Brian's Song, I think, was the first time I saw you perform, and I still cry every time I see it.
Oh, yeah, well, it's a classic. It's a very, very special experience.
Did you get to talk to Gale Sayers a lot in preparation for the role?
Yeah, we spent a little bit of time together. He's a pretty reticent kind of guy, but we became, in a very quiet way, friends. But it was a very, very wonderful experience.
I don't know if you've had a chance to stay aware of, he's not doing too well, unfortunately, and he's a friend of mine. We became friends in the 90s. I have a big background in sports radio, and you're right, he is kind of a quiet man, but I always felt a man of great dignity, and it does hurt me that he's in the state that he's currently in.
Yeah, well, it's unfortunate, but he will always be remembered in a wonderful way.
You know, I know you can't talk about Episode 9, but I am curious about just back at the beginning when they first approached you to play Lando. Can you tell us about that experience?
Well, they came to me. I was on the contract to Barry Gordy at the time, the owner of Motown, and that was right after doing Lady Sings the Blues and Mahogany, and they approached me about playing Lando, and of course at that time there were all these wonderful filmmakers around, like Spielberg and Scorsese, Coppola, George Lucas, and so when I realized that I had an opportunity to work with George Lucas, that was a real a plus in my life, in my career. So it was, and also at that time, Empire Strikes Back was being directed by Irv Kershner.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a big deal for me to work with Kershner and to work with George. So that's pretty much how it all started. Kershner came to my house and we sat and we talked about Eastern philosophy, and
oh, wow.
Because he was very much into Buddhism, and at that period in my life I was sort of exploring all of that myself. So we hit it off, and we had a real good rapport, and that was pretty much how it all happened.
How much was on the page as far as Lando's character, and how much do you feel the spin you gave him coming up? You're one of the kings of cool, Mr. Williams. I mean, I remember quite well in the 70s, and I do want to ask you about the films with Diana Ross and Mahogany, Lady Sings the Blues. But you really, the Colt 45 campaign, you really were. And it's, knowing all that, it seemed like it was kind of a good fit for you. But how much was there on the page?
Well, I pretty much created that character. I mean, what was on the page were the things that, there are certain things that I used and worked with, like the cape, the fact that his name was Calrissian, and I thought, wow, an Armenian name. I thought that was very interesting. So I sort of took those two ideas and sort of played around with it and employed my own personality, obviously, and my own feelings about the character. I mean, there were certain key points about the character that I certainly played on. The fact that he was a rogue and he was a gambler, all of those things. I just wanted to make a kind of a heroic, kind of roguish, heroic kind of individual who had a lot of charm. So, I mean, it's a combination of things.
Sure.
But certainly, it's me.
Yeah.
in many ways, it's me. Me. So.
Well, I got to tell you,
and I wanted to make him bigger than life.
Excellent.
And that's how I always, all of the characters I've ever played always have that aspect or that element of being bigger than life.
I completely agree. Another great sports film you did back in the day, Bingo Long and the Traveling All-Stars.
Right, yeah.
One of my favorites, sir. I met you 10 years ago, and I'm like, look, Lando's great, but I got to tell you, Bingo Long, man, that's my jam. That was fantastic. And what a great cast and a great tribute to the Negro Leagues and all they represented.
Right. Well, that was one of my favorite characters. I love Bingo.
And you and James Earl Jones, great chemistry, man.
Oh yeah, we had a wonderful chemistry.
Beautiful film, absolutely. And also, I really appreciate the fact that because certainly you're of the generation where a film like the Star Wars franchise can typecast you. But it clearly wasn't an issue with you, and I love the fact that not only coming up this December in Episode 9, whether it was a game or the BBC radio adaptation or audiobooks, it seemed like they came to you with, playing Lando again, and you were up to the job. You're like, sure, of course, you love Lando, clearly.
No, absolutely. Well, Lando is me, and I'm Lando.
What'd you think of Donnell last year playing young Lando?
Well, he was fine, but sure. He's not me.
No.
But he's an extraordinarily talented young man. There's no question about it.
It reminds me of when Samuel L. Jackson did the modern Shaft, and thank God they put Richard Roundtree there with him as Shaft. And that one moment where he says, hey, do you want to back me up to Richard Roundtree? And he's like, me? Back you up? And he just shakes his head and walks away. And I have that vibe with you and Lando. It's like, listen, others may come, but there's only one Billy Dee. And I think, absolutely, man, I get what you're saying.
Well, Richard Roundtree, to me, he's the original Shaft.
Yes.
I can't see anybody else play Shaft except Richard Roundtree.
I'm with you, sir. I haven't seen the new one yet, and I even in the Samuel L. movie, like I said, it was good to see him.
And I love Samuel L. Jackson. I think he's a great actor. But there are certain individuals who come along and create a kind of persona that you just it's like it's like an original moment.
Understood. Which came first, sir? The Colt 45 ad campaign, or you doing Lady Sings the Blues in Mahogany?
Oh, that Colt 45 came after.
Okay. Well, let's go chronologically then, and let me ask you about making those films, because we mentioned Shaft, the blaxploitation films as they're called, were their own thing, but you were always a leading man. And I really think that you got a level of good films and respect that, as much as we all loved the Shaft films and the old Jim Brown martial arts films and things like that, and Superfly, they were their own thing. And you were like a Gable. I mean, you really were like a leading man that we all absolutely are like, well, of course he is. He's, my God, look at the man and look at the way he can act.
Well, I've always tried to approach my life and my career in an eclectic way. I always had, I guess, I know it's very difficult to explain it, but being a romantic figure on the screen was something that I always enjoyed doing and wanted to do. I just wanted to create something different than what was being presented,
Sure.
on the screen.
Well, I think you achieved it. I mean, my God, those films are really classic films, and they're of their time, but they're also timeless at the same time. And I can appreciate what you're saying.
Well, I don't think in terms of ethnicity. I think in terms of how do I want to project this whole idea of Billy Dee Williams.
Yep.
As an individual with my own individual point of view.
Well, no question, sir. It came through. I mean, again, in all these projects. So, about Colt 45, when that opportunity came up, was that just a fun lark to do those? I mean, they really were memorable ads. And again, you're right there, man, with Steve McQueen and Clint Eastwood and any of the other kings of cool that I could think of the era.
Yeah, well, I mean, the whole idea was to really just sort of project this kind of heroic figure, and even with the fragrance I had, Undeniable, that I did through what do you call it?
Was it Fabergé?
No. Avon.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I did that for about 9 years.
Wow.
And that was did very well. But the whole idea of being first was always very important to me. More than being number one, I've always wanted the whole idea of being first is much more intriguing to me.
Well, and then did you ever feel after doing the Star Wars films that being stereotyped was a problem? It didn't seem to be. I mean, my God, then you go to, in the mid-'80s, you're on Dynasty with Diane Carroll, and again, that's a great romantic, part with a equally powerful actor.
Yeah, well, I never feel that I'm being stereotyped. I mean, these are characters I enjoyed doing, I wanted to do, and I thought they really projected something that, for the most part, people had never seen or experienced before with a little brown-skinned boy like me.
A friend asked me, he's like, hey, ask him about his paintings. And I said, I didn't know he painted. So I went online and I looked at some paintings. Hey, man, that's fantastic. You're like Tony Bennett. We come expecting you to have one skill. And then if it turns out I'm also an artist, check out my stuff. So great stuff, man. Are you still painting?
Oh, yeah. It's very much a part of my life. I started out as a painter, but in many ways I did almost start out as a painter. I mean, I won major. I mean, I went to a school called the National Academy of Design for the Fine Arts, where I spent 2 years on the scholarship painting, and I was nominated when I was about 19 years old for a Guggenheim, and won a Hall Garden, which is comparable to a Guggenheim. But so painting has always been very much a part of my life.
Well, they're beautiful paintings, and all people have to do, if they don't know, is go on Google. And I mean, obviously, it'd be great to see them in an exhibit as well. Do you ever still put them out as far as any gallery shows or museum shows?
Well, I haven't done shows in really a long time, but every now and again, I have a gallery up in Canada, in Toronto, called the Brian Litz Gallery, and I'll show some stuff up there. But I haven't really done any showing. I'm thinking I might do a show somewhere this year, somewhere.
That's terrific. Well, I know Episode 9 comes out in December, and I mean, believe me, I don't want you to, you've earned any sort of relaxation you want to do in your life. But do you have any other projects that are coming up that you do want to mention?
No, I'm really not in a rush to do anything, really, unless it's something that's really, super interesting.
Okay, fair enough. Well, good luck to you, sir. I mean, honestly, I genuinely appreciate this opportunity to speak to you, and really, congratulations on a full body of work and such incredible characters that are indelible to this day, beyond Lando. And I, mentioned several of them. Oh, Scott Joplin, another great television movie you did where you got to play Scott Joplin, for God's sake.
Oh yeah, that was a lot of fun to do.
Very cool, man. Well,
working with UB Blake. That
wow.
Was really interesting.
That's amazing. Absolutely, sir. No, I'm well aware. For people listening that might be younger, UB Blake, this incredible man that made it to 100 and was literally one of those original ragtime guys and could speak with clarity and knowing the people about what they were like. Oh my God, I'm sure he gave you great insight into Joplin.
Well, he had the longest fingers I've ever seen on anybody.
I agree. I remember seeing his performances on television. You're absolutely right, sir. That's pretty amazing. For Bingo Long, did you talk to any of the old Negro League vets?
Oh yeah, well some of them were in the movie.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Cameos. That's cool.
A lot of those guys were the part of the Negro Leagues.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's great. It's such a funny movie, and I really, again, that's another one that pops up on cable, and I always recommend it to baseball fans and say, oh, you want to see a great baseball movie that's really funny, and you and Richard Pryor and James Earl Jones and the actor, I don't remember his name, but I know he was also Otis Day in Animal House. He was the mute that got hit by the ball and couldn't speak in the film.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
yes.
Funny stuff, man. Really, really, really great. Well, I don't want to keep you, Mr. Williams. I genuinely appreciate you talking. You're going to be at Terrificon in just a couple of weeks, and that's the reason why we're talking. And also, if you don't mind, real fast, regarding Batman '89 and you playing Harvey Dent, I know a bunch of us were disappointed that knowing who Harvey Dent was and who he was going to become, the villain Two-Face. How much were you aware of that when you were making that first movie?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I wanted to play Two-Face, but things just didn't work out.
How was it working with Tim Burton and Nicholson and well, I guess you didn't have any scenes with Nicholson, but a great character actor you worked with who was Commissioner Gordon, Pat Hingle. I was always a fan of his as well.
Yeah, well, it was fun. No, I mean, it was a very nice experience. Very
cool. Well, again, you're going to be at Terrificon at the beginning of August at Mohegan Sun in Connecticut, and I know the fans will be lining up, and they'll have plenty of Lando questions, and I'm sure some of the other things we covered today. So, truly, thank you for your time. I hope we get a chance to meet each other at Terrificon. But if not, then let me thank you personally for all the great entertainment you've given me over the years.
Well, come by and say hello, and you have a wonderful day.
That's Billy Dee Williams. I'm just beside myself with the loss this week of Rutger Hauer. And he and Billy Dee made a great movie together, Nighthawks. And I can't believe that in my excitement to talk to Billy Dee, I had forgotten to ask him about Nighthawks. It's one of my favorite early 80s movies of his, him and Sylvester Stallone. It's a great cop action movie. It's a great look at a terrorist and dealing with a terrorist here on American soil. Maybe a more resonant movie now than it might have been 30 years ago when it was made. But great loss with Rutger Hauer, another one of those fine actors in everything, Ladyhawke and Blade Runner and, so many other wonderful films. And I liked his work in the later years, like in Confession of a Dangerous Mind with Sam Rockwell playing the German agent. And, Morgan Edge, when he played him on Smallville, I thought he was very effective as Morgan Edge. So just a moment to think about the great Rutger Hauer and his wonderful body of work. And if you've never seen Nighthawks, I absolutely recommend it. A fine performance of both Billy Dee Williams and Rutger Hauer, and Sylvester Stallone for that matter. Tremendous action movie. Go out and see it.